A tropical depression has now formed in the Atlantic, and before it reaches the Lesser Antilles and the Caribbean, it's forecast to become a hurricane. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Good to see you on this Friday afternoon. I hope you're doing well. Well, friends, things have escalated quickly. We've been monitoring that invest area in the Atlantic. We now have a tropical depression number 2. We're going to get into that one. We're going to get into the invest area nearing the Central American coastline as well. But obviously, if you're just tuning in here, things have intensified in a hurry. So let's talk about the here and the now, and then we're going to talk about the forecast that the Hurricane Center has of this now tropical depression becoming a tropical storm as early as tonight, and then a potential Category 2 hurricane as it moves through the eastern and central Caribbean. So on this late Friday afternoon, and I apologize for being a little bit later than normal, but I saw that the Hurricane Center was going to make this a depression, and then I wanted to get the newest information on all of this. So here we go right now for you guys. We have tropical depression number 2. Winds are 35 miles an hour, moving off to the west at 17, okay? What we have seen is a big consolidation of the storms. I mean, this looks very impressive right now on satellite imagery. As a matter of fact, let me just get rid of the track here very quickly because I just want to be able to look at the satellite data with TD number 12. Doesn't that look very impressive? We're really seeing that central dense overcast. We're seeing a big blowup of thunderstorms, and it has become concentric in a hurry. So any of the sloppiness that we saw with this system earlier today is gone. And there is really nothing stopping this from getting stronger and stronger. And honestly, I'm a bit shocked at how significantly strong the Hurricane Center has made tropical depression number 2 becoming a hurricane before it even reaches the southern side of the Lesser Antilles. Let's take a look at the water vapor imagery out of this as well. You can clearly see a very concentric area of moisture over that center point of the circulation right now. Good outflow on all sides. I've mentioned it several times already, but there is a weak area of high pressure to the north. It's a mid-level area of high pressure, but again, this time of the year, we typically have westerly winds that stop any of these tropical waves from developing as they move through the Atlantic main development region, the Atlantic Basin. But this high has easterly winds on the southern side. Obviously, we're having easterly winds move our storm from east to west. The bottom line is there's very little wind shear, okay, which is very unusual. And this high is going to escort tropical depression number 12 west as it becomes tropical storm and eventually Hurricane Beryl as well. And there is no significant wind shear between here and the Lesser Antilles to have any issues as far as continued, gradual, and potentially fairly quick development across this region. This is going to be a problem for my friends, no doubt about it. Okay, let me get back over just to this shot because it's going to make it a little bit easier to track everything else for us here. So that's what it looks like on the here and now. Let's talk about the initial track from the Hurricane Center, and we're going to stair step this. Again, later tonight or potentially tomorrow morning sometime, we're going to get a tropical storm, all right? And then we'll watch this tropical storm just get stronger and stronger. By the way, I just want to point out the times because you're going to see this is the initial time, but that second point is going to be tomorrow afternoon. And then as we get into early on Sunday morning, winds are 45 miles an hour. And then the first signs of this potentially becoming a hurricane is going to be right here, and that's going to be Sunday early afternoon, okay? And that would be when we have winds of 75 miles an hour. Now, all of this is obviously ahead of it. That's obviously not with the actual storm, but I just wanted to show you guys this track. So right now on this forecast track from the Hurricane Center, we have a Category 1 hurricane moving into the southern side of the Lesser Antilles, Windward Islands in general, towards Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and maybe as far south as Tobago. Again, this forecast could potentially change. This is the first forecast cone, but we never look at the center. We want to talk about impacts that will be felt much more widespread than that. But as of note, again, the Hurricane Center has this of a hurricane of winds of 85 miles an hour with gusts over 100 as it approaches Barbados and then into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Believe it or not, it has it as a Category 2 hurricane. That's what you see right there. By the way, those pinks that you see are winds of over 64 knots. So those are your hurricane force winds. Yes, they might be in a relatively small area, but the tropical storm force winds extend much farther into that. At this point in time, we have no tropical storm watches or warnings or hurricane watches or warnings. Those could come fairly soon. Obviously, if you live in these areas, not only are you going to be getting the messaging from the National Hurricane Center, but also from your local government officials as well. So now is the time to start preparing in places like Barbados and St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago want to be on alert as well, Martinique, Dominica, Guadeloupe. We're going to get into the stair-stepping of the models here coming up. But again, we're now getting close to a 48-hour time frame where we're going to start to see these initial impacts. This time frame right here is 2 a.m. on Monday morning, and then this time frame right here is 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon. So the bulk of the impacts for the southern side of the Lesser Antilles will come throughout the day on Monday. Unfortunately, of course, this system isn't just going to stop as it gets into the Eastern Caribbean. And the Hurricane Center keeps this a fairly strong Category 2 hurricane as we get into Tuesday with winds of 105 miles an hour, and then a Category 1 hurricane as it potentially approaches Jamaica, and that would be on Wednesday afternoon, winds at that point in time of around 90 to 95 miles an hour. Look, there is nothing written in stone, especially once it gets to the west of the Lesser Antilles. There's still a big model spread, relatively speaking, but the models have trended to be stronger and to keep this system going longer as it gets deeper into the Caribbean. We'll deal with what we have to first for our friends in the southern side of the Lesser Antilles, and maybe, places on the northern coast of South America, and as far north as the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. And then we'll get into what might be happening midweek for areas like Hispaniola, Jamaica, and at least some indirect impacts for places like Puerto Rico and the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands. So again, this is your first track of Tropical Depression number 2. Forecast to become Tropical Storm Beryl tonight or early overnight, and then up to a Category 2 hurricane as it moves through portions of the Lesser Antilles. Again, Category 1 here, but a Category 2 right there. So it'll be teetering high-end Category 1, low-end Category 2. Friends, if you've been following along the last couple of different hurricane seasons, the one thing that the models have had a really hard time picking up on is the quick intensification that we've seen with the inherent environmental conditions that are in effect. Obviously, we have La Nina. We have very high sea surface temperatures in that area. We have very little wind shear. Some of the models try and make this even stronger. And the Hurricane Center in this first discussion mentioned that. I hope that is not the case. But they have already been relatively aggressive with this first advisory to make this a Category 2 hurricane. And the models, quite frankly, are supporting that size as well. All right, so now let's look at the GFS model when it comes to the actual reflectivity here. Probably best to get rid of some of this data simply because it's going to be a little bit easier to see here on the map. I'm going to bring back on the model timeline, and you'll see that right there. So the first thing we're going to look at is I'm going to stair-step in the GFS model. Latest run, it's all in very good concert. I'll say this as well, and I'll show you the spaghetti plots coming up in a second as well. There is a very high concentration of the models here bringing this through this area. As a matter of fact, I believe I can actually throw on the forecast models. There we go. Let's just do this like that, all right? So these are your tropical models, your spaghetti plots running through. Here's the GFS model, and you can see it brings it just like the models have, right on the southern side of Barbados, through St. Vincent and the Grenadines, places like St. Lucia, Grenada, maybe as far south as Tobago. Now again, we're going to have counterclockwise winds. The strongest winds are going to be the northern side of this. So there will be more impacts felt farther away on the northern side of what Beryl is going to be. some Martinique and Dominica and Montserrat and St. Kitts and Nevis, maybe that far north to get some tropical storm gusts. The winds will be out of the west down for Nueva Esparta and Trinidad and Tobago, and the winds won't be as strong, but they could still have some fresh winds as well. But anywhere along the center and north is where we really have to monitor. And then, of course, it continues to move off towards the west. Towards the west. That's right. Now, again, on this track, it will have indirect impacts for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Could be some interaction, especially in the GFS model with Hispaniola and the mountainous terrain. That is why it goes from a Category 2 on the Hurricane Center down to a Category 1 as it gets close to Jamaica. The GFS model is more robust at the land interaction with Hispaniola to knock this storm down quicker. It would be good news for places like Jamaica and Cuba and the Cayman Islands. It's not what the Hurricane Center is talking about right now because they still have it as a Category 1 as it gets close to Kingston. So more wind shear, more land interaction with the GFS trying to knock this down. The European model, and I'll show you that in a minute, is farther south, keeping it away from Hispaniola and the higher terrain and the drier air and keeping it a stronger system. By the way, there is another wave behind this with a 30% chance of development, and that is what you see on the heels of what's going to become Hurricane Beryl. Now, at this point in time, I'm not concerned about it. I think it's going to be very weak, especially as it follows the same path of Beryl. That cold water upwelling will not have as good of environmental conditions and a bit more wind shear in play. But obviously, friends, this is significant. Again, the Hurricane Center is calling for a Category 1 to Category 2 hurricane in the southern side of the Lesser Antilles as we go through our Monday. So only about 72 hours away or less. Let's look at the winds. Same model. We're going to look at the GFS model here. Loop this up for you guys. And again, if you live in these areas, now is the time to start getting prepared. Okay? You guys have been through it before. You know what it's like. We'll continue to keep you updated here. Local officials will give you the local messaging that you need as well. But certainly, all indications are we could have a hurricane moving into places like Barbados and St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the southern side of the Lesser Antilles in general, late Sunday and into Monday. All right, let's take a look at the wind speeds here. Let me bring this back. You can see that clearly coming through. So we'll stair step this, take our time. And again, the GFS model, and let me get myself out of the way. I apologize. Here we go. The GFS model as it approaches Barbados, supporting some hurricane force winds. By the way, these are surface winds that are sustained. They're not gusts, okay? So these would be the sustained winds we see and even some higher gusts out of it. Let's march it a little bit closer to Barbados. Put this on, and you can see the winds here, again, pushing 90 miles an hour on the GFS. And some of the models are even stronger than this, guys. It's not hype. I mean, the Hurricane Center is discussing, and they even said, look, sadly, we might be a little bit on the weaker side. There's over 104 mile an hour winds in the GFS model as it gets close to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia. Your time frame is 11 a.m. on Monday morning. And then moving through as we get to the early afternoon and then moving off towards the west. We'll follow it here. Again, more interaction with Hispaniola on the GFS model, and it really does blow it apart. That is not the solution, again, at this point in time from the Hurricane Center. If I put the Hurricane Center's official cone back on with the official forecast, take off the forecast models, you can see the divergence between the Hurricane Center and the GFS model. Again, right here, it's Category 2. This would be a little bit weaker already on the GFS model, trying to come right around low-end Cat 1 tropical storm strength with Beryl. But could have some significant impacts for Hispaniola as well. Okay, this is a look at those spaghetti plots, all right? And what you're looking at is basically those spaghetti plots, but in a different way because this is the intensity as well. Anything above the green line is a hurricane, and that's most of the models. Most of them are high-end Cat 1, low-end Cat 2. A couple of outliers that are even into major hurricane strength, and a few that keep it as a tropical storm. So there is a fair amount of divergence when it comes to this. But if there's one thing the models have not picked up on very well the last few years is the rapid intensification of some of these storms. Now, it's late June, it's not late August, but we still have the environmental conditions that mimic more like it's late June out there in the Western Caribbean, the western sides of the Atlantic and the Eastern Caribbean. So we'll see how this plays out, but there is a big divergence right now in those spaghetti plots when it comes to the actual intensity. Let's see. Let's look at the European model. This is the wide view, and you can see the low tracks south. Beryl tracks south of Jamaica, and on the heels of that is the weaker system. Again, there is a difference in the intensity of the European model, keeping it stronger and farther to the south because there's less land interaction with the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola. That seems to be the bigger difference right now. And then the European model drives Beryl through the entire Western Caribbean and then closer to Central America and the southwest sides of the Gulf of Mexico as of the latest model run. It's obviously going to come with a ton of waves. We're going to obviously see all the kinds of small craft caution, staying in port. We're going to see obviously very long period easterly swells. We're going to have some flood potential issues, at least 4 to 6 inches of rain along that track. And again, you can see that wave heights, 12, 14, 16 feet, will be coming along for the ride through the entire eastern side of the Caribbean. It'll be impacting more areas. And then that secondary system will also be pushing some double-digit waves through portions of the Lesser Antilles in the eastern and the central Caribbean islands as well. All right, friends. So these are the areas that need to continue to monitor. And I apologize. I was putting this video together and we got the news of it being a tropical depression, and I wanted to wait. I didn't have time to update all of my graphics. So obviously Invest 95L is actually tropical depression number 2. But again, all the Lesser Antilles need to focus on this storm. In particular, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. I expect there to be some indirect impacts to places like Puerto Rico, the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, and then potentially more direct impacts to places like the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica down the road. But again, that is down the road. However, all of these areas you need to continue to monitor. And of course, I've got you covered here at Meteo Mundo. We're going to be doing a lot of different things. If you are new to the channel, okay, when we get into these situations, we stream our weather computer 24/7, okay? So if you go to the live tab, when you're done watching this video, you find the newest thumbnail, this one right here, that says TD number 2, forecast to become Hurricane Beryl. It will be our weather computer running in a loop. I'm going to have all different views for you, but you can get your live satellite, your live radar. I'm going to have the wind gusts on there. All the information in between these videos you can find on our live stream. I suggest you check it out. I thank you guys so much for liking this video. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want to keep up with Beryl and the latest across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, hit the subscribe button right now. Please share this video with anyone you think might get something out of it, especially anyone who lives in the Lesser Antilles. I appreciate those who have become members here at Meteo Mundo for 99 cents a month, those who have found the super thanks as well. There's going to be a lot that we're going to be getting into. I will be doing more live coverage of this as we get into the weekend, especially late Sunday, and then of course certainly into Monday. So the 24/7 stream will kind of cover in between these forecast videos, but then I'm going to be going on live and then tracking this live for you guys as well. So that is what's going on with TD number 2 that's going to become Beryl. Now, sadly, there's other stuff to talk about for us here. Let's look at, and I'm going to start off with the live of what's going on right now with Invest 94L. You can see the significant amount of rain. It's gotten fairly wet again through the Cayman Islands. It is drier in Jamaica for today. Storms are developing in Central America around the Central American gyre. Now, this is a 30% chance of developing in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. So no development as it moves across the Yucatan. But again, this is always going to stay a very wet, sloppy system. Not anything really intense. If it does wrap up, it'll be quickly moving into the western sides of the Gulf of Mexico and then into Mexico itself. But this will still bring some very heavy rain for places like Cancun and Belize City and Roatan and San Pedro Sula and a lot of Central America with southeast winds wrapping around this, it's going to stay extremely wet in this area. Take a look at the water vapor imagery. You can see what I'm talking about here. We've got this cyclonic rotation around the Central American gyre and just loads and loads of rain still to come. It's going to be a little bit drier for Jamaica. You guys are right on the edge. We're going to see some storms trying to get going in portions of the Bahamas the next couple of afternoons. I've noted a couple of storms up there today. Isolated, localized, but heavy downpours and lightning where they developed. A few over Andros. Earlier today we had some over Grand Bahama. A couple down in the southeast side of the Bahamas as well. A couple over Cuba. Saharan dust is still into play over these areas. So storms have been very isolated for Hispaniola and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands for today, and most of the northern side of the Lesser Antilles as well. For Jamaica itself, we've had a couple of storms trying to get going this afternoon. And again, I've got the hurricane plot on here. Obviously, again, this is the potential for Wednesday. I have some presets in some of these, so bear with me on that. So let's take a look at the forecast rain in your area the next 3 days. The Bahamas, scattered to isolated storms, northwest Bahamas, a little bit more isolated central and southeast, relatively dry on the Turks and Caicos. Storms developing each afternoon in Cuba, still wet in the Cayman Islands today and tomorrow, and then drying out on Sunday. Belize City, Cancun, and Cozumel, more storms tonight. Overnight, a very wet, stormy Saturday. By the way, some of these winds, and we'll look at that real quickly as well. Some of these winds being produced out of that invest could be in that 30 to 35 mile an hour range with gusts. There's going to be easterly onshore breezes for places like Belize City, Cancun, and Cozumel. And then there'll still be a fair amount of rain on Sunday. Jamaica's rain chances will fall a bit, but still some scattered storms expected in the afternoon. Not much rain today for the Dominican Republic. There is a tropical wave ahead of everything I've just been talking about that'll move through the Lesser Antilles tomorrow and Sunday, and that will start to up the rain chances, spiking tomorrow and then coming back down. So you see that for these other areas. Bermuda will still have some scattered showers, but Anguilla and St. Kitts and Nevis, rain chances go up for tomorrow. Same thing for Antigua and Barbuda, St. Lucia and Barbados. There'll be a lull in the action a bit on Sunday before we see Beryl starting to come in late Sunday and into Monday. Trinidad and Tobago, Nueva Esparta again, and the ABC Islands do stay relatively dry. Okay, let's look real quickly at these winds. I don't want to ignore that aspect of this. So let me switch over to this real quick. Have I shown you guys the... No, I haven't. All right, I haven't shown you guys the reflectivity out of this. So let me just drop this down to the next couple of days. You want to talk about scramble mode, guys. Goodness gracious. You know, my system actually picked up on the fact that this was going to become a tropical depression before the Hurricane Center even put out on the website that it was. And I was sitting here going, I can't go on the air and talk about a tropical depression because we don't even have a track yet. So I had to wait, and then I had to kind of, you know, modify some of the other graphics. But this is it, guys. We're already in the heart of it. Late June, early July, we're cranked up. Now you can see on the GFS model how it stays a very wet, disorganized system. But again, more rain for areas that have had very heavy rainfall. So mudslides, landslides, and some isolated flooding is going to come along for the ride with Infest 94L. Let's take a look at the winds. If you looked and joined me this morning, we were picking up some winds here, especially on the northern tip of the Yucatan in that 30 to 35 mile an hour range. I think that is absolutely plausible. Again, it may not wrap up into a true center of circulation, but we're going to have some fresh winds from time to time in this area. This is what they look like here. Let's see, I'm going to back it up just a little bit here. Here we go. And again, we're still pinging on, as I mentioned, 30 to 35 mile an hour winds. And again, these are sustained winds. So you're talking about some pretty good wind-driven rain right now. Cancun, Cozumel, back down towards Belize and the coastal sides of Guatemala. Roatan is right on the edge. The winds will be stronger north of the center of circulation, or that broad area. And so Roatan is just going to get clipped. But then this will be moving into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, and we'll have the same kinds of wind speeds here. We're going to have some 30 to 35. And again, on the far southern side, right there, is where we could have the briefest of brief tropical depressions before it moves back into Mexico. All right, guys, let's talk about the rain. That's another big factor. Look at all the red. These are in inches, all of Central America, 4 or 5 inches of rain, 100 to 125 millimeters of rain, 100 to 150 millimeters of rain expected in the Lesser Antilles as Beryl comes through. That is 4 to 6 inches of rain. And again, on the European model, the track is farther off towards the south. The GFS model would bring more rain to places like Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and potentially Jamaica and Cuba if that one plays out. But that will be, again, set in stone as we get into next week, not as of now. All right, friends, that's the latest here. You can find us across all of our social media where we will continue to provide you updates over the weekend. We are on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, myMediaMundo@gmail.com if you want to send me a picture or a video from your area. So, again, the 24/7 live stream will be coming back tonight. I will be doing another video tomorrow morning. I will also be planning to go live Saturday afternoon at some time, and then we'll play Sunday and Monday by ear, but I will be doing live coverage both Sunday and Monday as Beryl gets closer to the Lesser Antilles. Once again, thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing as well. Our thoughts are with our friends in the Lesser Antilles. I've got you covered. I appreciate you, and I will see you real soon right here at Meteo Mundo.